Hello, everyone, and welcome to this amazing session. And as always, here at Raising Remarkable Teenagers, we are always scouring the world to get you some lovely expert, parenting expert, so we can learn strategies, we can learn snippets, we can learn, steps to improve how we parent our teenagers, especially so that they can be highly effective young people that we roll out into the real world. So today we've got Vinu Keller, and today we're going to be discussing about self-esteem. And as you know, with from for the last about a year and so, uh, we've been going through a lot, and there's been a pandemic in the whole world, and especially our young people have been hit hard. From our research, we find that that's when their mental health has been knocked like really big time. And as people who are passionate about the mental wellness, the whole well-being of young people, we need to talk about this. And you as a parent as well, I know you want to talk about this. We need to get into these discussions so we can see how we can help them, no matter what's happening, that they don't have their self-worth, their self-esteem knocked, because it has knocked most of us. But
Mhm.
today Vinu is going to be speaking to us about how we can support our young people, as as we've also been affected. So where how do we get that strength to be able to support them? So Vinu is a parent child peacemaker. So we're gonna be hearing the strategies, and I can't wait. And I want Vinu to introduce herself. I know I've done it a little bit, but I love it when our guests introduce themselves, because each one of us knows ourselves best. So welcome, Vinu.
Thank you so much, Angie, for having me. And right now, there's such a need for this. I've been working with families for over 22 years. I started out as a mental health professional, and through my own journey and through my own obstacles of learning my own self-worth and self-esteem, I've been able to help kids in a way that even therapists aren't able to get them to open up and get to the actual core of what is going on that's lowering their self-worth, lowering their self-esteem. Why do they not feel enough? I have a history of being suicidal. I was suicidal for 21 years of my life, and that was just always my exit plan to leave this world. And it goes deeper to just not being enough. It goes to that feeling of loneliness. And right now, our kids are feeling lonely. Like you're spot on with like this pandemic, and us adults are trying to navigate through it with our brains that we have our frontal lobes that are developed. How are these kids that don't have that frontal lobe developed? How are they getting through this pandemic, feeling like they're enough, feeling like they have community? Because a lot of kids, let's face it, I have 6 kids, and they range from 20, almost 27. Next month, he'll be 27. It's hard to believe he's going to be 27, but he's 27 next month. And I have 8-year-old twins, and I have a 3-year-old granddaughter. So, like, I look at every scope, like 8-year-olds, I have teenagers, I have adults, I have a young granddaughter, and I look at everything. And I start to look at the behaviors and what they've gone through. And, they go to work to get their socialization. They go to school to get their socialization. We don't really see our kids until they get home in the evening, and then there's extracurricular activities. So our time with our children, before pandemic and coming out for us in the US, a lot of us are still, like, my kids are back in school. We have a little bit of time with them. Well, what happens when this pandemic happens and they're home now? Where's their socialization? Where do they feel they're a part of a community? They're a part of a social group. They've lost that. And then they're on Zoom all day, right? They're in Zoom in school, or they're on videos, and people are like, well, my kid plays videos all the time, and they shouldn't be on videos. How else are they supposed to get connection right now?
Mm.
I get it. We need our kids to read more. We want them to play more. Well, if there's no one they can play with because they're social distancing, what do we want them to do? How do we want them to connect with their peers? And this is where us parents need to get curious. Like, instead of saying, oh, you're always on video games, ask them questions. What do you get from this video game? And when I ask my clients that, because I have a lot of kids that I work with, a lot of teenagers, they say, my parents just don't understand.
Hmm.
That's where my friends are.
Aha.
This is where we strategize together in the game. And then they get off and they put it on YouTube, and they have like the montage of different game sets they did together with their friends talking with each other, and if we just get curious about who are your friends, tell me about your friends. What do you know about your friends? When we get curious, you know what? Our kids get curious,
Absolutely.
and they may be like, well, I don't know about Greg on there. And then all of a sudden, because I asked him about it, now he wants to know, hey, Greg, where do you live? What do you do? What grade are you in? What's your favorite subject? How are you doing this pandemic?
Hmm.
One of the clients I work with, he's 12 years old, and he said that, he was being bullied at school,
Hmm.
and there was a lot of bullying going on, and he doesn't want to go back to school. Like, he kind of likes the fact that they're virtual because he's made new friends
Yes.
in his virtual class,
Yes.
and they like the same video games.
Mhm.
So they have a connection now.
Hmm.
So, it can work either way. It can work against us right now, or it can work for us. But until us parents get curious and start asking the questions, we're not going to know.
Absolutely. And I like what you said about us, instead of getting angry and straight on going into that conclusion that they are spending hours on this, getting curious, it actually makes them feel like, oh, mother or father is involved, is involved in what I'm doing. They feel or they think it's important. And because young people have, again, as you rightfully said, they've not fully developed, they tend to attach what they like to themselves. So when you begin to let's say, we're not saying that you must like what they're doing, but when you get curious and want to find out what is this you're playing, and it's not in a questioning way, it's not in a threatening way, it's like,
Right.
oh, tell me more. It's
Mm-hmm.
tell me more. Tell me more. They begin to feel important. They begin to welcome you in their world. And actually, as you get to know what they're doing, you can then start to encourage the skills that they're learning, because there are so many skills that they learn to plan, they learn to communicate with each other, they learn to give each other turn to play, they learn to even argue in a safe way when they're playing those games,
Well,
actually.
and they get feedback. Like, one of the things that people don't understand is how to give feedback and how to receive feedback, and how do you make it better, because they're always looking at how do I make it better. And this part is their self-worth and self-esteem. So when you get curious and you show interest in your kids, it's like, almost, I'm worth it. I'm worth mom leaving her work
Yes.
to come and spend time with me, and I'm worth my mom's attention, I'm worth my dad's attention. And that's where worth is. So worth is how a child feels about themselves, and
Mhm.
self-esteem is how they see themselves,
Hmm.
you know and so, one of the things that I tell, like, I just wrote a book. It's on Amazon, or your viewers can download it for free at my website, benewinspires.com/ebook. It's Teach Your Children They're Enough. Teach Your Children Enough. There's three. It's a short read, but I give you so many strategies. And the 3 chapters is: don't blame and shame,
Mhm.
be present, and
Absolutely.
celebrate. Those are the 3 chapters. Because
Absolutely.
if we are not blaming and shaming our kids, like, don't ask the why question. Why are you on your video game for so long? That kid is going to be like, I don't know why. Like, and they immediately go to defensiveness. They give you a tonality where you're like, don't get that attitude with me. And it's like, if we think about, where does the tonality come from? They feel threatened, they feel accused, they feel blamed, they feel shamed. And it's a responsive reflect in them to defend themselves, right? Instead, say, what are you playing? What do you get from it? Wow, that sounds interesting. Tell me more. I love what you said. Tell me more. Because now you're taking a valued interest in it, not just a surface interest, like, kind of like, oh, how are you? Oh, good. How's the weather? Oh, good. Like, that's a surface. Tell me what you're feeling right now. Tell me what it does. Does it light you up when you're on this game with them? Tell me why it lights you up. You'll start to discover your kid's passion. You'll discover your kid's purpose. You'll discover what really, like, we got to get rid of this whole, my kid's not motivated. It's not about motivation. It's about momentum.
Absolutely.
What's going to create that momentum in your child to keep going? And as parents, we cannot have a deaf ear to this anymore.
Mm,
Suicide rates up for kids are so high right now. And
mm,
we have to ask ourselves, like, what are parents missing? I have so many people that I talk to and they're like, oh, my kid's good. They're the valedictorian. They're the captain of the cheerleader. They're the, the quarterback of the football team. And yet they're the ones that are waking up tomorrow and finding their kids dead. They're like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Because we're not getting curious. We
absolutely.
cannot live a blind eye thinking your kids are great because they're not coming to you with problems. They don't have an attitude with you. So your kid must be great. Are there kids like that? Absolutely. And I don't want to dim that light. But what are you doing to make sure your kids are like that? What questions are you asking? How do they feel about themselves? How do they see themselves?
Yes.
I always use like a scale when I'm coaching kids. On a scale of 1 to 10, tell me how you feel walking into your classroom by yourself. 10 being, I feel great. I feel, I feel good about myself. I don't care if people look at me, like I'm ready to walk in. I own myself. I own what I'm doing. And this one is, I want to hide. I want to die. Please don't. Like, that's the worst thing that can ever happen is me walking into my class late by myself.
Mm,
And I get kids that are probably like a 2 or 3.
yes.
And they're the same parents that say to me, oh, my kids are great. Oh my God, they're so good at school. Really? Have you asked them? Because they're a 3.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing from you is, again, that's what we are finding in research, that about 40% of teenagers are reporting that they are lonely. And obviously, in this pandemic, it's even worse. Obviously, there's no recent research, but I'm talking about our most recent research is that means between you and I, one of our teenagers is lonely.
Yeah.
Did you know that's almost 50%? That's a big number. That's a big number.
And
And
our parents don't even know it. Our parents don't know that their kids are lonely.
yeah, and then you think, oh, everything is okay, everything is okay. Do you know for sure that everything is okay? Do you know for sure that everything is okay? And those are the questions we need to, when we get curious, when we lean in, when we listen, then we get to know their deep thoughts, we get to know their frustrations, we get to know their dreams. And then as they begin to come out of those doldrums, right? Then we
Mhm.
can start to listen, we can start to hear their dreams, their aspirations. Most of us don't know. And why? Because we know what our kid, I know my kid's going to be an orthodontist. I know that. Know that, right? I mean, that I'm not saying, I'm not saying that. That's the latest thing that she has told me. I have a teenage girl. So she's changed from, from an athlete to what, but all these things is because you listen and allow them to explore themselves. What am I good at? Who can I become? What, and they change, and especially in teenage years, because they're going through that. And most of the viewers here, you guys know, because we talk about this all of the time, understanding your teenager's brain, understanding the mayhem, understanding their crisis, their identity crisis that they are going through. Remember, they have been a child all their life. So now they are moving over, they are crossing over to another territory where they have no experience, they have no skills, but we, because we can see they are bigger, we are expecting them to step up and be independent. We're expecting them to do what needs to be done at that age. And that's why they're going through all that. And that's why it's very important for us to listen in, to be curious, as Vinu you said, because there's a lot of changes that happen in those years. And if you're thinking that when we talk about adolescence and teenage years, we are finding now in neuroscience, what we are finding now, teenage years start from about, puberty starts from about, let's say 9, 10 to about 25.
Yeah.
If you
25
thinking,
minutes.
if you're thinking it's a quick thing, oh no, it's not a quick thing. And that's why it's very important for us to learn and arm ourselves with strategies that are actually going to work for this space of time. And like Vinny, you said about self-esteem is how they see themselves, and like self-worth, how they, is that how they feel about themselves? Yeah.
Yes.
So, and one of my most favorite psychologists, long gone, he's the father of psychosocial. He said, if our teenagers do not navigate this stage, which is the identity crisis, right? If they don't navigate this stage, they are unlikely to be successful in their life. Because once our kids navigate this stage successfully, then they enter that, they become independent, and then they enter into that other high level performance, which we call interdependence. But they cannot do that without self esteem, self worth. It's impossible for them to become independent, and then even impossible completely for them to become interdependent. So what you're saying is we really need to encourage, we really need to encourage and hone and support that self-worth. So what I would like to ask you is, how can parents, right, how can parents, we as parents, because I'm learning as well, I've actually learned that distinction today, that self-esteem and self-worth from you. I'd never thought of it like that. I always use them inter, interchangeably, but that's something else that, and it makes sense to me.
Well, you can't, how do you see yourself as great when you don't feel yourself as great?
That's what I mean. I've just learned
Yeah.
something else. Yeah.
And
And
so,
mhm.
so you got it. We got to work on the worth first, right? We got to work on how they feel about themselves. And so when we don't blame and shame our kids, instead of saying, why did you get that C? Ask them, what does it feel like to have that C? You might find out that that child, your child, works so hard for that C, even though they're an A student, but it's the hardest teacher they've had. They've had a lot of runarounds with that teacher, and they are so proud of that C because in their mind, they were going to fail it. So that C to them was like an A. So, and when you say, well, why did you get that C? You just diminished what they felt their worth because you said, why? Instead of saying, what does that make you feel like? Like I have my twins, my 8-year-old twins, and my daughter, they both have dyslexia, they both have ADHD, and I have them, the great tutors, they're in great programs, and they're coming along. And my daughter took a vocabulary test and she got a 20 on it, and I'm like, we really, like, how do you feel about that? She goes, well, I have to retake it. So when the teacher said she had to retake it, she already knew that that was not great. And so I said, okay, well, we're going to study. And I studied with her, and we did the best that we could, and she took the test and she got a 40, and she was so proud of herself. Now, you and I both know a 40 is an F, but she's like, Mom, I did it. I got a 40. And I said, what are we going to do to celebrate that? Because she says a 40 is higher than a 20. And she goes, I know it's not 100. And I really, really wanted to get 100. And I said, and she goes, but I got a 40. And I said, you did. And we're going to celebrate that. How are we going to celebrate that? Because I did not want to take her worth away from that 40. It was better than a 20. As a parent, would I love to see 100? Of course I would. We all want to see that our kids are getting, because a grade to me doesn't justify if my kid's good enough. A grade to me tells me, did my child understand that chapter? Did my child understand that vocabulary test?
Absolutely.
And she got a 40. Guess what? She didn't understand it. And I get she didn't understand it. And so what we did is that gave me an opportunity to connect with her tutor saying, can you help her with this? And not teaching our kids that, well, I don't get to retake the test, so why do I need to learn it?
Mm.
Instead, it's teaching them you don't know it and you need to learn it. So the reward is understanding that, because that word is going to come up somewhere in your life and you want to know what that means.
Ah,
And my daughter's like, oh, yeah, yeah, okay. So she was more apt to even learn it at a deeper level
yeah.
because it made her feel worth it.
Mm.
Right?
Ah,
The things that we do give them their worth. The second thing is our presence. You know, right now we have our cell phones all the time. So we're eating dinner with our kids, but we're on our cell phones. Or, you know, we're having a conversation with, like, you know, somebody's coming to the door, like, I'll get it, like, and I'll have a conversation. I missed dinner. It's like, when are we enough for our kids? You know, when I am coaching, when I'm working, I'm on this podcast right now, my kids know, don't come in my door, because I got to give my whole worth to what I'm doing.
mm.
When do they get that same attention? When are they worth it? Because they see my presence with my clients. And then the third thing is celebrate. When I was little, I would get like honor roll, I'd get rewards, and my mom would say, good job, that's so good, what do you want for dinner?
Ah,
That was it. And so I didn't know how to celebrate me
oh my
until I
God.
went. So I did a lot of work with Tony Robbins. I'm actually a trainer for him now. And it's going through his leadership program that I learned how much celebration means. And that is why my husband and I both, we incorporate celebration with our kids. Like when they get hundreds, they get so excited because they get like $3 for every hundred. And they do not forget, girl. They are like, I got $9, I got 12. Like I don't even have to write it down. Like they know how much money they've accumulated. And then we go like somewhere and they buy things. And because that's their celebration, that they're worth it.
Absolutely. And what I hear you saying is, I can feel you are something, again, we talk a lot and we encourage parents to do, because it's in the doing. I mean, we can know all this information, but if we don't do, if we don't take action on it, we actually don't get the results. And when we don't get results, we don't know whether these actually work. But what I'm hearing you say is, you are praising the process. You're praising the progress.
Yes. Yes.
You're praising every step, because the mistake that some of us, most of, I know I've been guilty of that. I put my hand up, and thankfully my teams, because I talk with them, I talk with them and tell them what I'm intending to be and to become. They will, when they catch me on it, they're like, oh, wait a minute, you said that we need to celebrate, not just when we finish the whole thing, but when, because you've made this step. So what I'm hearing you say is praising the process, praising
Absolutely.
the progress. It's very, actually, it's very, very important. Most of our parents here, again, we talk a lot about what's happening in the teenager's brain, in the with the teenager's body, because it's in understanding what's happening within them that we can be more compassionate, even more forgiving to them, because some of what's happening, they themselves don't understand. But
Right.
we're more
They don't.
yeah, we are more compassionate when we understand them. So that there is a part of the brain that we call the striatum. The
Mhm.
striatum is the reward center, and in teenage years, it's like this, like huge. I want it. I want it. I want the praise. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, do you know? Remember when our kids were tiny, and everything they did, we got excited, and when they made the first step, we got excited and we praised them. And I don't know what happens to us these young people are older, and we
Because we went to
stop.
expectation, because we went to expectation. We expect our kids to do. So if they do it, it was an expectation, so they should do it. It's like going to the grocery store. We're
Hmm.
expected to go to the grocery store to get food. So why are we celebrating we got food instead of celebrating the fact that, oh my gosh, I have money to get food. Like this is a great honor. It's a gift. Like teaching gratitude, right?
Absolutely.
And that's what we forget. Like you said, we get so excited when they take that first step because it's the unknown
Hmm.
and we set them up. And the other thing is that, I would like to just, piggyback off what you're saying, Angie, because it's so important is we need to ask them, how do they want to celebrate?
Hmm.
Because maybe, and it goes into this love language, maybe words of affirmation's not their love language, so that's not celebrating to them. Maybe they want a hug, maybe they want a high five, maybe it's quality time, so they want you to take them to the ice cream parlor and sit and have ice cream. Maybe they want to cook dinner with you to celebrate. Like, ask your children, how do they want to celebrate? How are they going to receive it? Like, even in our relationships with our partners and stuff, we have to figure out what's the formula to receive that love and appreciation. So the best thing to do, it all comes down to one thing: communication. Get clarity in our communication, ask questions of how our kids want to receive this, and you will start to see that the open space for your children, especially your teenagers, to talk to you is going to expand even more because they feel safe. If your child feels safe, they will tell you everything. Why I was on a call with a client just recently, and she has a therapist, a psychologist she was seeing, and she told me some things that first she says, oh, this, I see my psychologist on Zoom and it doesn't really work. In our hour conversation, she's like, this is so different. Coaching actually works. Like, this is so different from therapy. And she says, and I told you things I never even told my therapist. And I'm like, I feel honored because I've always said that I can get your kid to tell me things they're not going to tell their therapist. And I'm telling you, come to fruition. Those were her words. Like, I'm telling you things I don't even tell my therapist. Why? Because I did not judge her. Gave her a safe space to feel safe, not criticized. And I got curious. And she felt her worth with me because she was worth me asking the questions.
Absolutely. I love that. And it's something we talk about. And I'm glad that you're affirming some of the ideals and some of the ideas that we talk about. We talk about being a safe space for your child, for your teenager to speak. Because when you become a safe space for them to speak, then they begin to open up. And when they begin to open up, now what we are having is a teenager who can pour themselves out. Now they are no longer lonely. And now, because they are no longer lonely, they are no longer vulnerable to crime exploitation. They're no longer vulnerable to drugs exploitation and no longer vulnerable to sex exploitation and even mental health problems, because when they can speak to you, they can pour out, they don't have someone else out there to prey on them.
Because you know what, and just to piggyback off that, because you're spot on, why do our kids go to undesirable, I'll use that word, undesirable groups of friends? Because those friends accept them,
And
they
listen.
see them, they appreciate them, so they feel they're not lonely anymore. And it goes right back to what you and I were talking about. Kids are lonely. So if you create that safe space and they know their worth, they're going to find groups to hang out with that also see their worth. The
Absolutely.
problem is, and I know this because I will admit my son hangs out with people that are probably not the choice I would make for him, but he's 22, he's going to make his choices. And we always talk about it. And I say, you are getting in trouble. And I'm so glad, because I've taught my kids to own it. And I'm glad you're owning the issues that you're going through. And look at the company you keep. They're all doing it and you feel comfortable. And so you do it too. They're getting in trouble on their own. You're getting in trouble on your own. When is somebody going to wake up and say, this is not my people? This is not my tribe. Are you in a circle or are you in a cage? Because if you're continuing down the same road, making the same mistakes, you're in a cage.
Absolutely.
Find the key to get out of it and create a circle who's going to lift you up. Who are the friends that got your back? Who are the friends that are going to celebrate with you? Who are the friends that are going to call you out and say, really? Who are you really? Is this who you really are? Because I know you and I know the person you are. So if you were going to make a better choice, what would that look like? That's a good friend.
That's a good friend. And I'm just excited about what you're saying and how you are able to actually speak to your young person in in those terms. We actually, at the moment, everyone that's watching this show, we are giving a free masterclass, 75 minutes for you, and it's how to build strong bonds with your teenager based on honesty and trust. So they actually want to listen to you because for our teenagers, I mean, you've got great information right there, right? And I know our parents have got great information, especially after they've listened to this. We know what to do. But then how do we
Take
get
action.
our teenagers to listen to us? Because if there's no connection, if they don't listen to us, we can be the greatest speakers, we can be the greatest, uh, but we will have absolutely no influence on them. So, how would you say how can we make ourselves that safe? I mean, I have an idea what it is, but I would like you to tell us how can we experience make ourselves a safe space for our young people to come and listen and speak to us, so open to us.
Yeah, so it's funny because I just did this taping because I created an online program for parents. It's a 6-week online program that's getting ready to launch. I'm really excited about it. And the key is getting rapport with your children. You have to be in rapport. And rapport is not dictating. You said something really important, Angie. Our kids have got to navigate through this time right now, but they don't need to navigate by us being dictators. They need to navigate with us being a guide. How are
Absolutely.
we going to guide them? And we guide them by being rapport. If you and I didn't have rapport, we wouldn't be having this conversation. If
No,
I was, if I was coming in as superior telling you, oh, I know, oh, you're wrong, you're not doing it right, Angie, you're not telling the right information, this conversation would have ended a long time ago. The
absolutely.
fact that we are in rapport, we're both neutral, we're both coming in as experts in our field, understanding, saying yes, like, oh, I'm learning from you, you're learning from me, and we're vulnerable enough to say we get each other. How else can we support? So we have a common denominator in serving the world to make the world a better place for our generations. You and I have come into with rapport. What would that look like for our children if we come into our children saying, look, I understand you didn't get invited to that birthday party, and I can appreciate that it hurts,
Yes.
and I can see you're angry.
Hmm.
So what is it that you're really feeling? Like, I know angry is a release for you, and I get that, I love you, so I'm probably the one that's feeling it from you. But remember, I'm not the one that didn't invite you. But I am the one that's here with you right now. I
Yes.
am the one that's going to hear you. And why don't you just tell me, like, what are you feeling about not being invited? And then
Hmm.
when you open that space and you have rapport, because you're not judging now, they're
Absolutely.
going to say, well, I feel like I'm not worth it. I feel like I thought they were my friends. And how could friends do that?
Hmm.
That's going to lead you the door to say, well, what are friends to you? And
Yes.
are they your right friends? And I get you don't want to be alone. So what would that look like to be alone? They're opening that door because I had rapport with them.
Hmm.
Rapport is the key thing. And rapport is saying that I'm not better than you. I'm not a dictator to you. I'm coming on equal grounds to play.
Absolutely. I love that. I love and and it's about helping them not feel threatened
Yes,
and
safety.
safety, and they're feeling mother or father or grandma or whoever is my is asking this. They are genuinely concerned about my wellness, my well-being. They're not coming here to reinforce my insecurity. They're not asking that to laugh at me. Because another thing we find with teenagers is that, because especially when they've been hurt, they can't read emotions on people's faces. So they think, and that's why a teenager will ask you, what's wrong with you? Why are you angry with me? Even when you're not, because they don't read emotions very well. And it's up to us to say, oh, that's not what I meant. That's none of it. And always be very non-intimidating, right?
Right. You can't be
No,
threatening.
yes, be non-threatening at all, and actually seek to understand in a very genuine way, because again, they can feel when you're not being genuine. They can feel fakeness all of
Right.
us. We are
And
vibration beings, and we can feel fakeness, you know?
and it's what we all need though. We all need to be seen and we all need to be heard.
Mm.
So if your children know that you're coming with, like you're saying, like a non-threatening, like if your child says to you, what's wrong with you? Because I get that from my older boy, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't know. Is something wrong with me? And I get playful with it. And they're
Yeah.
like, well, you said this, you said that. I'm like, oh, was my tonality not good? I'm like, I didn't even know. I was like preoccupied. And that way you can explain to them, it's not you. I was thinking about, I have 2 appointments. You just walked in the door. I got to get dinner because I promised you dinner. I hadn't even started. So you know what? Honestly, my tonality is saying I'm rushed.
Mm.
And I don't want you to feel guilty because I want to make this dinner for you because you're coming to visit me.
Mm.
And yet I still have 2 appointments I got to take care of. So, and that when we're vulnerable with our kids like that, where it's like, nothing's wrong with me. When we say that to them, they're going to imitate that.
Absolutely.
They do what they see. They don't do what they hear.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So if we're constantly like, well, what's wrong with you, mom? Nothing. And then we ask, Johnny, hey, what's wrong with you? Nothing. Well, what's that?
That's
Well, they got it from us. I mean, you said something earlier, like when our kids are learning how to walk, why do they want to walk? They watch us walk everywhere and they want to be like us. Like it goes back to the very beginning. How did our kids ever want to do anything? They saw us before they even understood the language of, that we speak. They saw the language of body language. They saw the nonverbal communication, which is 80% of communication. I mean, we've got to think about that. So how we show up for our children is how they're going to show up.
you are so correct, because again, in psychology we call this modeling.
Mm-hmm.
Modeling is really you showing up, and what is someone picking from you. That is
Right.
whoever you are. It's not what you say, it's how you're showing up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, when you said to them, when they said to you, mom, what's wrong with you? And you said, nothing. What are you showing? In their mind, they're thinking there's something wrong with having something wrong.
Right.
While if I
We're
say,
not allowed to have anything wrong with us.
yeah, but that's not the picture we need to portray to them, because we know they are going through a lot of changes. They've got, some of the thoughts they tell you, you're like, okay, that's a strange thought. When they begin to open to you and they tell you, I mean, including, I'm going to say it here, including some of the sexual feelings they have. And,
Yeah.
and those are some of the things. I know it's a very sensitive topic for most parents to talk about. But if we don't allow our young people to express this, how they feel, the frustrations and all that, they're going to speak to someone else who's going to take advantage of them,
And I'm
right?
going to tell you, I just had 3 of my clients between the ages of 11 and 15 tell me that they're non-conforming gender and they're bisexual, and their parents don't know it, but they told me. And what's great about what they told me is they have a safe space to say it because they're not judged by me. And we talk about it. We talk about, what does that mean to you to be non-gender conforming? Because this is all new to me too. Like I grew up in the 80s in America. You're either born a female or a male. Like there is no in between, and you can want to be a male and you can get surgeries and stuff, but you're born a female, born a male. Now we're so open about this that our young kids are learning about non-gender. Like I just learned that I'm a cis. I'm like, what is a cis? And she's like, well, you're female and you identify female and you're heterosexual. And I'm like, so I'm not just a girl? Like, I mean, I grew up just when I was a girl, that likes boys. So it's interesting what our kids are learning. And either we're going to be open, have rapport, let them have a safe space to share with us so we as parents can deal with it with our kids. And I don't know, like if my child told me tomorrow they're gay, I would be open to it, because I don't have any expectations of what I want my child to be, except one, happy.
Yeah.
That's the only expectation. If they are a garbage man, if they're a mailman, if they're a maid, if they're the presidents of the United States, I will always be proud of them if they're happy.
Absolutely.
I just want them happy. If they're with a guy, a girl, it doesn't matter. Happiness. And the one thing that I would like to, because I know we're coming to the end of this, is it's not perfection, it's progress.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. It's progress. It's progress and it's not perfection. And I know I think we're going to have to talk about this another time, especially when it comes to our own rigidity as parents. And what I'm saying, and I'm encouraging parents, including myself, I have to be fluid. I have to be fluid. I have to be open. I have to be able to take things in a non-threatening way, in an impartial way, so that they will continue to pour out. Because if I, for example, if someone says, I felt like doing this, or I felt like doing harm to myself, and I was like, what? That's when they stop.
Right.
They stop. But we don't want that. We want to ignite this conversation, because remember, you and I know that once you begin to share, the load in itself feels a bit lighter.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to be receptive. But then that means we need to work on ourselves as parents, because we've got a backlog of what I normally term as poisonous parenting paradigm.
I
Because I mean, I can almost feel that you understand that.
I do. I call it the baggage. Like in my second week in the course, I do a whole process called, letting go of the baggage. Act like you have a suitcase, and there's great things in there that you want from your parents, and there's also shitty stuff that you want from
That's
your
the
parents.
one.
Sorry, but, it's bad stuff, right, in the baggage. And what happens is, if we grew up not feeling enough, if we grew up being spanked, if we grew up saying, that's not good enough, you can get A's, I know you can. I mean, I know, I put my hands up. This is why I've created this. I've done this. I have adult boys. I see the outcomes if we keep doing that. And that's really what was my fuel to change this, right? And but I had to open up the baggage, and I need to take out the yelling. I need to take out the blaming. I need to take out the shaming, because even though I said I wasn't going to be that parent, I turned out to be that parent, because that's all I knew. And I did the best that I could with what I knew as a single mom, especially. And now it's beautiful. Like you're saying, like, get rid of it.
Yes,
Parent through fresh eyes.
that's right. So
Find the goodness and
what
use it.
oh, brilliant. What you're saying is we need to let go of what's not working. And
Yes, girl.
we need to
Yes.
we need to be ready to unlearn. As much as we are learning, we need to be able to unlearn, and what doesn't serve us, what, no matter how much we loved our parents and that, we need to let go of some of the things. In fact, even forgive them for some of the baggage that they so shoved down our throats, because what they did to us, they cemented it in our subconscious mind to a point where we think this is right, this is correct, right?
And we can go on a whole nother show on that one too,
I
about
know.
self-forgiveness and stuff. So,
So what I'm
you
going
know,
to do now is, here at Raising Remarkable Teenagers, we love to give practical. I know we've talked about a lot, and I know all you guys, all you parents, your brains are churning with information. But if you can just give us 3 strategies, or 3 snippets, or 3 steps, anyhow you want to do it, that our parents can practice as soon as today, to begin to help our young people to build their self-worth, their
sure.
self-esteem. What would those 3 things be?
So, and I'm going to just go back to my book, and this way they can go get my book for free and they can have it, right? So you don't need to even take notes.
Go
The
for it.
first thing is stop blaming and shaming. And blaming could be as simple as, did you clean that? And if they cleaned it, you just shamed them.
Hmm.
Instead of saying, oh, the counter looks pretty good. And they look at it, and they might say, ha, I didn't even do it yet. And you're like, oh, thank God they didn't do it yet. Or they're going to say, oh, I really tried. I'm glad that you like it. And then you have an opportunity to guide, not dictate, and say, so let me show you what it would look like if I got all the crumbs out.
Yeah.
And then I show them what my standard is instead of dictate my standard.
Mm.
And then I'm like, tell me what you see. And they're like, oh, I see that I missed a few spots. I said, no worries, no worries. What's great is that you saw that. So tomorrow you have another opportunity.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow comes and then you praise them. You praise them because they got all the crumbs off this time. And you're like, wow, now that is an amazing counter, right? So don't blame, don't shame. Get curious, like in that blame and shame, ask questions, get away from the why and ask what has to happen for this? What do you feel about that? What does that look like to you instead of why? Who cares why they stole the cookie out of the cookie jar? They stole it because they wanted it. We don't need to know why. What we want to know is what's going to happen so you don't have to steal again.
Yeah.
We need to stop thinking about why did you hit your brother? Why did you take the remote control? Why? Who cares why? We already know that they wanted it. They wanted instant gratification because that's what the brain says we want.
Right.
What we need to find out is what are we going to do so it doesn't happen again?
Now.
So future pace them on how to learn from it and not shame and blame them. The second thing is be present with your child. When it is your child's time, they don't need 8 hours like we do 8 hours at work. But if you gave them 20 minutes of undivided, like no cell phone, no interruptions, just you and them, that will mean more to them. Even if it's just 20 minutes a day, looking in their eyes, being interested, like you and I were talking about in the beginning, being truly interested in what they're playing.
Yes.
So what if you don't know how to play? Tell them to teach you. They'll be like, what? Like, you want to learn this? I'm like, if this is what you're into, I want to see what you're into. So teach me. Yeah. This is the one time you get to beat me in things. Come on, teach me, have fun, playful with it, but be present with them.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is celebrate. Celebrate. These 3 things will start to, you want the worth to come from within, not external. Because when we rely on other people to tell us that we're great, what happens when those people aren't around? Then we're not great anymore. We attach that, like that identity. We're attaching that identity to what other people think about us. And that's the problem with our society. Instead of going within and saying, what do I think about me? And what would that look like? And what do I need? So if you do these 3 things, parents, don't blame and shame, use curiosity, right? Curious, not critical. You're present with your child and you celebrate. They're worth celebrating. The fact that they did the dishes tonight and you didn't have to ask them, celebrate it. Celebrate the small, stack the small and celebrate the big, right? Because if you do that, you're building your child's internal self-worth. Wow. So they will be no match for bullies. They'll be no match for society. This world will be a better place if everybody felt their own worth.
Absolutely. And I love what you said, because at the very essence of each one of us, including those kids who feel that they are not worthy sometimes, they are so worthy as human beings. And we can help them realize, oh, this is me, this is magnificent me, this is, and it's not in a prideful way, because most of the parents say, oh, if you praise them too much. No, that's not what we're talking about. Factual celebration. You're not saying you're not being funny. You're being
right. You're not saying just good job about what? Good job. I didn't have to ask you to do your chores like that. You have just stepped up in your maturity, just like you took that first step. You just stepped up. I didn't have to remind you to make your bed. Like, I want to celebrate the fact that you grew up in overnight and you did your bed by yourself.
Absolutely.
Be factual about why you're celebrating it.
Absolutely. So I am so excited. Can you just give us that link to that free book again? Because I want all you guys to get it. I'll be downloading it as well, because I've followed you. I read all your stuff on LinkedIn and Facebook, and it's just amazing. Amazing tips out there, and a lot of it do resonate with what we believe, with our values. And when I see that, and I'm thinking, yes, and if each one of us can learn this, just what a good and better world would this be? Imagine what we're doing is actually building young people, supporting young people who tomorrow are going to be, they're going to be our pilots, they're going to be our creators, they're going to be our, our doctors, they're going to be our entertainers, our jokers, whoever, or even just young people who this is a young person
They're our
who,
future.
if I'm stuck somewhere on the road or something, this is a young person who can actually help me and not thief from me, you know? Yes.
And that's just it. Like, my why is that another child should not feel they're not worth it or lonely that they take their life. Another child should love themselves enough that they're not hurting themselves, whether it's cutting, whether it's drugs, whether it's drinking, whether it's another substance because they don't care about themselves. That is my why. If I can help just one child in this world, then I've done my job, because I am so, like, I was so lonely growing up. And I'm asking the questions to these kids that there is no best practice. Therapists, psychologists have this idea of best practice. The best practice you can give your child is what your child needs in that moment. Absolutely. It's not, we got to get rid of the labels of conscious parenting, mindful parenting, helicopter parenting. Just be the parent your child needs you to be.
Absolutely.
If your child needs you to hover over them a little bit more because they need that guidance, then be that. If your child needs their own space to feel that emotion in that moment, then be that. If you need your child to consciously make decisions because they're all over the map and they don't know how to focus, then be that. Be the parent your child needs you to be.
And it's a moment by moment. It's a moment by moment. It's not something that doesn't mean, because you did this yesterday, it's suitable tomorrow.
Right, because everything changes day to day.
We are evolving being, and just as we are evolving, our young people especially are very evolving, and they're very fluid. So we need to go. We need to go with them. We need to. I'm gonna say, like, maybe go with the flow, but really, that's how we need to. We need to go with them, and I'm so excited. Give us that.
Yes. So on my social media, you can find me under Venu Inspires. It's VEENUINSPIRES. And that's also my website, venuinspires.com. And if you just put /ebook, you'll get a opt-in, download my ebook. If you guys have any questions, please, put them out. Like, Angie and I want to help you. I mean, that's why we're doing this. Angie, thank you for doing this. Thank you for being a change in the world for our kids, our future. I mean, they're our future presidents. They're our future everything. If we want this world to be love and kindness, we need to teach it now.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your insights. We so appreciate. And from myself and the whole team here at Raising Remarkable Teenagers, you all go out there and do what you've learned. Implement those strategies, because it's in actioning the strategies that we get the results that we want. It's in action that we get the accomplishment. So go out there and do it. And just the first thing you do, you want to download that ebook. And then I don't want to tell you everything you have to do. Then you read it, and let's do it together, because I need to hear feedback of how it is working and how these strategies are working. So again, I am so thankful, and thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next episode of Raising Remarkable Teenagers. And all the best now. Thank you so much, Vinu. And we'll speak soon. And I think we're going to be having you as a guest soon, yeah? All right. Thank then. You. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.